I have a question for you. What if Ukraine is no longer just the country that receives weapons, but the country that builds them? I'm Roman Smoliar and this is War and Politics 24, the channel where we go beyond the headlines to uncover the weapons, the strategies and the power struggles shaping today's war. So in this episode, we will explore Ukraine's new missile arsenal, the Sapsan ballistic missile, the Flamingo cruise missiles with its claimed 3,000-kilometer reach, and other homegrown systems that are reshaping the battlefield. For years, Ukraine relied on Western supplies, Patriots, HIMARS, Storm Shadows, ATACMS, but since 2022, something dramatic has changed. Volodymyr Zelensky said recently, I quote, "Over 40% of the weapons used on the battlefield are now produced in Ukraine. 95% of drones are made domestically. That means that Ukraine is no longer just consuming Western technology, it is building its own, and among the most important breakthroughs are ballistic and cruise missiles." Let's begin with the ballistic program. Ukraine's flagship missile is known as Sapsan, also called Hrim-2. This project dates back to the late 2000s, deployed by the Pivdene Design Bureau in Dnipro, but only in 2025 did it truly enter combat service. In June this year, Ukraine officials confirmed that Sapsan had completed combat testing and entered serial production. According to reports in the Kyiv Independent, the missile carries a warhead of about 480 kilograms and can hit targets up to 300 kilometers away. Analyst Ivan described in blunt terms. He said, I quote, "The very emergence of domestic ballistic missiles is a bold political statement. It's a big, fat middle finger to the Kremlin's claims that Ukraine must be demilitarized. Sapsan is not just symbolic, it is practical, with a range of around 300 kilometers and a speed estimated at Mach 5. This weapon can strike deep inside occupied territories and into Russia itself. It is roughly in the same class as the American ATACMS. Andriy Yermak, the head of President's office, promised that Ukraine would deliver what he called surprises to Russia. He said, I quote, "The production of our own missiles is progressing very well. The enemy will feel the result." Of course, Russia knows the threat. In July, the Russian Ministry of Defense claimed it had struck production facilities linked to the Sapsan program. Russian media even alleged that Germany had secretly financed parts of the project. Whatever those claims are accurate or not, what matters is this: Ukraine now has an indigenous ballistic missile in mass production. Now let's turn to an even more ambitious weapon, the Flamingo cruise missile. This missile broke cover in August 2025. It is built by a company called Firepoint, and it has already entered serial production according to Ukrainian press reports. Photos taken by Associated Press journalists showed the missile in a workshop.
Weapon production is a huge guarantee of Ukraine independence, but also European safety. The maximum range is 3,000 kilometers confirmed, with an accuracy of 14 meters to target on this distance. And the payload capacity is, in the moment, 1,150 kilograms.
Flamingo is enormous, 6 meters in wingspan, a fuselage reminiscent of long-range cruise missile used by major powers. And here's the number that matters. Its range is claimed to be 3,000 kilometers, that is 1,800 miles. In theory, a missile launched from central Ukraine could hit Moscow, the Urals, and even targets far beyond. It carries a warhead of around 1,100 kilograms, more than double the punch of Storm Shadow. It flies at subsonic speed, about 950 kilometers per hour, using satellite and inertial navigation. Ukrainian sources say it is resistant to electronic warfare.
Technical characteristics is not much different from a Shahed. Of course, it has different construction, but the function is the same, despite of the fact that it can go a little bit more far, has a little bit of bigger payload, and is a little bit more advanced in terms of precise hit to a specific target. Right now, Ukraine is holding this barrier, and let's say it's exporting safety to other countries, which are
Military analysts quickly drew comparison with the US Tomahawks or Russian Kaliber cruise missiles. But the difference is political. As one Western defense expert noted, I quote, "The appearance of Flamingo means Ukraine has joined a very small club of nations capable of building long-range precision strike weapons." And again, this comes in spite of pressure from some Western partners. In June, the Wall Street Journal reported that US officials advised Kyiv to prioritize drone and air defense, not long-range missiles. But Ukraine made a different choice. President Zelensky explained why. He said in an address, I quote, "We cannot depend entirely on supplies from abroad. To defend ourselves, we must have weapons made in Ukraine, on Ukrainian soil, under Ukrainian control." There is also the POLITICO project, announced in 2024. This is a hybrid between a drone and a missile. It uses a turbojet engine, can be guided remotely or programmed to hit coordinates, and represents Ukraine's search for cheaper, flexible solutions. Zelensky at that time described it as, I quote, "a new class of weaponry designed for the modern battlefield." And these projects are not isolated. They are part of a broader trend. In 2024, 96% of drones used by the military were made domestically. By 2025, more than 40% of Ukraine's entire arsenal was Ukrainian. That is industrial mobilization at wartime speed. So what does this mean strategically? First, it reduces dependence on Western politics. When Washington debates, when Berlin hesitates, when Congress delays aid, Ukraine keeps producing. Second, it increases deterrence. A Ukraine armed with long-range missiles like Sapsan and Flamingo can threaten military bases, logistic hubs, even critical infrastructure inside Russia. That forces Moscow to defend deeper, spread thinner, and spend more. And third, it sends a message in the Zelensky words, I quote, "Every new weapon we produce means more independence, more resilience, and more certainly that Russia cannot break us." For the United States, this is not a distant experiment. This is a case study in wartime innovation. Ukraine has compressed what usually takes decades for defense development into just a few years under bombardment, under attack, under existential threat. Analyst Michael Kaufman put it simply, I quote, "What Ukraine is doing with missile production is extraordinary. It shows how necessary accelerates innovation, and it will have consequences for regional security for years to come." To sum up, Ukraine now fields its own ballistic missile Sapsan, tested in combat and in serial production. It has unveiled Flamingo, a cruise missile with intercontinental reach by regional standards. It experiments with hybrids like POLITICO while mass production drones on an industrial scale. These are not prototypes in a lab, they are weapons already in the field. Weapons that will shape the next phase of this war. And the bigger picture is clear. Ukraine's defense industry has been reborn under fire. What began as a desperate fight for survival is turning into a national program of rearmament. And as Zelensky told his people, our future depends not only on the courage of the soldiers, but also on the strength of our factories. Ukraine's new missiles are more than hardware. They are proof that a nation under fire can innovate, adapt, and fight back. If you want more clear, fact-based analysis of the weapons and politics shaping this war, make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode. Stay informed. See you soon.